So now we're going to be looking at the incident report, which you can see here on the screen. This form is going to be used anytime there's a situation out at your site that could be damage or detriment to the property, someone's personal property, someone's physical form, anything that is something of a severity to where it needs to be recorded. And your HR staff, your supervisors, your schedulers, they can explain this to you in greater detail in terms of what you're going to be looking for, but it's always best to use your best judgment. If you don't know, if it seems like it's serious, then it probably is. If it seems like it should be written down and recorded, then it probably should be. So when in doubt, just go ahead and do an incident report just to be safe. Obviously, if somebody gets a paper cut, you don't need to do an incident report. But if something comes up stolen, somebody was harassed, somebody's car was damaged, the building was damaged, the property was damaged, anything like that, you're going to want to do something. And make sure and always contact the office sometime while you're doing or before you do the incident report, and make them aware of what's going on. So what we're going to be looking at here, it's going to ask you to put your supervisor's name, the date and the time of the incident, the date and the time it was reported to a supervisor, the date and the time of a supervisor's arrival, and the date and the time that management was contacted. So then it's going to ask you next, was the client contacted? So all these need to be filled out, and it's really important that you make sure each and every one of these steps is done. The supervisor is one level, the members of management are another level, and then the client themselves is another level. Next, you're going to put your name, you're going to put your employee number, you're going to put the location where you're at, and then you're going to put the shift that you're working. It could be 2 to 10, it could be graveyard, it could be days, whatever that shift is called. Obviously, the site location is going to be the name of whatever facility you're working at, ABC, box code, whatever it may be. Your employee number should have been given to you by HR. For some reason you don't have it, please contact HR. Next thing, it's going to ask you to describe the incident in your own words in detail. And the key here is detail. The best way to protect yourself and kind of alleviate any concerns or any questions or anything like that is to give as much detail as possible. This is one of those moments where you really want to take the time to write a paragraph or two and explain as best as you possibly can everything that happened. After that, it's going to ask you to describe the sequence of events that followed the incident and how you responded. Yet again, another time to really give some super great detail and take that extra second to put all that in there. Lastly, it's going to ask, did an employee sustain any injuries, and what were they? Broken arm, laceration, large bruising, things like that. And then any other comments and submit. So let's do an example of what something like this might be. And we're going to say that the fence line at the property where you were working at was damaged. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to reach out to Patriot Security Supervision. Let's say you talk to Supervisor Bob Smith. Okay, well, you put Bob Smith's name and the supervisor name, then proceed to fill everything else out. Once Supervisor Bob Smith arrives, he's probably going to contact management and the client. Then you're going to put your name, you're going to put your employee number, put everything else. And your employee name is whatever your name is, Joe Johnson. So let's describe the incident. The fence line was damaged. While I was making a round, while I was doing a patrol, I came across the northwest section of the fence and saw that a hole had been cut in the fence. Right? That's obviously a serious thing, because that means that somebody has broken into this facility by cutting through the fence. So what we want to do here is we want to try and describe exactly where the hole was cut at, the size of the hole, and everything around the hole. Were there any tools? Was there debris? Can you make out if it looks like it was done with a cutting implement, like a big pair of bolt cutters, or was it done with a torch? What made this hole, right? The next thing you want to look for is any type of footprints, or if they were coming through the fence line and they caught their clothes on the fence line, and maybe there's a piece of material from their clothing. If you do see footprints, you want to make sure and report everything you're seeing. Does it look like a large shoe? Does it look like a small shoe? Does it look like a boot? Does it look like a sandal? Yet again, be descriptive as you possibly can. Other things you want to make sure and to note as well Is it windy? Is it cold? Is it rainy? Is it hot? All these different things affect how a police department officer or a client or a member of management or a member of supervision is going to view this incident in terms of what they need to do next. For instance, let's say somebody breaks into the facility and it's really windy. Well, if there's footprints, say, in the ground, well, if it's really windy and it's loose ground, that wind's going to blow those footprints away pretty quickly. So we're going to want to try and get somebody out there to take pictures of those footprints. Let's say it's raining really bad. Well, we know the person who broke into the facility isn't going to be standing out in the open. They're probably going to be hidden somewhere trying to get out of the rain. Next, you want to describe the sequence of events that followed the incident. So you found the hole in the fence. You've done your initial assessment of what happened at this breach in the perimeter. What did you do next? Well, the correct answer should be I contacted supervision. Supervision informed me they'd be coming out to the facility. Then I proceeded to get as much detail as I could. I met with the supervisor. After meeting with the supervisor, he contacted management. He contacted the client. The client informed me to do a detailed incident report. The supervisor went and took photographs of everything. The client asked myself and the supervisor to make another round of the property and then to position ourselves by the breach in the perimeter. All those things need to be listed down, and you need to try and give as much detail as you can in this particular section. A, to help everybody out, to make sure we have all the information, but B, this is a good opportunity for you to make sure you're protecting yourself. And then lastly, did anyone sustain any injury? Well, let's say that it wasn't a cut in the fence line. Let's say that there was an irate employee who had been fired several weeks before at the job site that we're working at. Let's say he's an employee of ABC Box Co., and this gentleman comes out to the job site and throws a brick. Well, the brick hits one of your coworkers, a fellow officer of Patriot Security, in the foot. They believe their foot has been, hurt or possibly broken. You'd want to list out, my co-worker or my co-officer feels as though his or her foot has been broken by this brick that was thrown by ABC Box Co.'s former employee. And just try and give as much detail as possible. We don't expect you to talk like a nurse or talk like a doctor. We just want you to do the best that you can. Is there blood? Is there an open wound? Does it look like there's broken bones? Is there a lot of bruising? Just try and describe it as best you can. If it's a soft tissue injury, like somebody, let's say somebody was walking and they tweaked their knee, it's going to be hard to see what's going on inside, their body, but someone can describe to you, it feels like my knee has gone weak, it feels like I've pulled something, and just write that down as best you can. Lastly, other comments. Going back to our damage in the fence line, one of the things you'd want to put there is just anything else you can think of that would be associated to the events of that time period. We went to the camera system, rewinded the cameras. We noticed that the breach in the fence line happened, around 9 o'clock. We informed the client of this. Anything else that could pertain to the incident that doesn't necessarily fit in one of the other 3 sections. So I hope that answers all your questions about doing an incident report, and thank you for your time.